And now is the time to declare yourself.
You're a wizard, Harry. You're a wizard, Harry.
Hello, testing 1 2 1 2. The ninjas run through the sacred swamp. Hello, everyone. Hope it's going well. I wanted to make a video about Harry Potter and the occult symbolism. This is one I've been wanting to do for a while. It's something that as I've been studying astrology and masonry and occult wisdom and all that jazz, I tend to go back. I think back to my childhood and, the people collectively around me, around the same age range, who have grown up watching the same things, like Harry Potter, Star Wars, these pivotal movies that make up our childhoods and bleed into our adult lives. Because everyone loves Harry Potter, everyone loves Star Wars. Not everyone does, but at least one person loves one or the other. You know what I'm saying? And I made a video that was taken off called Hollywood Sorcery about how Hollywood TV shows and movies hint at what is going on behind the scenes, per se, such as Eyes Wide Shut, where Stanley Kubrick basically shows us the shadow side of these power elite fiestas that they got going on. And over the years, I noticed in Harry Potter, especially in the later movies, it starts to get very symbolic, which I'll go into, such as, the Deathly Hallows symbolism, where those are like the witchcraft emblems and symbols for clairvoyance. There's different occult meanings for those Deathly Hallows symbols, but the wand, the circle, and the triangle, all inside of the triangle, that type of symbol. It's a very ancient symbol. And so I'm going to be going into the background of J.K. Rowling, why she's significant, and then I'll be going through each movie briefly. Won't make it too long, where I kind of point out different key factors in each movie as it progresses into kind of a more darker witchcraft initiation type vibe. But the whole purpose is to demonstrate how we grow up with this stuff and we don't really notice in the time, but it is gearing us and prepping us for these types of initiations throughout our lives, and we tend to lean towards witchcraft and occult stuff, which there's good and bad in everything. But when you start to herd the masses towards a certain way, it starts to pique interest as into why they're doing that and what the intentions truly are. Enjoy. A little disclaimer. Don't get me wrong, this Harry Potter, I wish I was a wizard more than anything, and we are to some extent. But I just want to throw it out there that it's still a great series of movies. They make it they're very well made. That's not out of the question, but it's the intention behind the content, As they say, deception is cunning. I think someone said that. J.K. Rowling does come from a military family, which kind of goes back into the military ties and mass media, these people that end up being the stars, especially in music. In the Laurel Canyon scene, which I've made videos about, there's an interesting correlation between military and their sons and daughters becoming these revolutionary hippie anti-establishment singers. But she comes from a military family. She has gone through a lot of trauma in her life, and that is supposedly a big influence behind her writing. And when she was getting the ideas for Harry Potter and starting to write it, she claims that her mom just passed, and that's really what kicked things into high gear. I found a few interesting articles online. To the accuracy, I couldn't find any solid proof on it, but it was just something that is interesting and a common theme in searching J.K. Rowling and the relation between Harry Potter and the occult scene, and how it's meant for kids to kind of get hooked on the witchcraft occult scenario. And the article states here, on her official website, Harry Potter, series author J.K. Rowling finally admitted that she wrote the series on behalf of the Wiccan religion. In years past, many Christian groups were considered obnoxious for advocating that the books be banned from schools due to their potential for polluting children's brains with belief in witchcraft, but apparently they were not as crazy as originally thought. According to Rowling, the Wiccan community knew about this whole time. In fear of losing followers, if they released the series' true intentions early, they forced Rowling to wait until it already fulfilled their hopes and dreams, a younger, broader Wiccan community. She saved us. Everyone who reads Harry Potter or watches the movies supports us. Rowling donates large portions of her money to our experiments and facilities, an anonymous and Wiccan active witch said. You know, that's something I found on a forum, but it's quite fascinating when you see it put into those terms. What if you're a part of a Wiccan religion, what better way to expand your base than to go for the youth? Another article I found, which was interesting, it struck home with me because when I was reading these books as a kid, I was like, the first couple aren't that intimidating. I mean, for a kindergartner or first grader, they still are, but those ones are shorter compared to, let's say, the fourth one when they start getting thick. How do you expect a child to read these books in a timely manner? You have to be like a middle-aged man to get through these in like less than a week. I remember spending months reading these books, and this article brings up the fact that want the kids to have the occult on their mind, want Harry Potter to be constantly on their mind, and have it to like a year-long endeavor, so it's kind of imprinted in the minds of young people, which it is today when you look at it. Same with Star Wars, which has been accused heavily of occult symbolism and witchcraft training. And I know I'm a big fan of both, so I know how sensitive a topic it can be and how you want to defend instantly the integrity of these movies. But once again, the point is so you kind of take a objective view at it. And when we have kids, what we expose them to and why. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes. I'm going to rattle off a couple things here that I found interesting, such as the resemblance between Albus Dumbledore and Albert Pike, the so-called father of Scottish Freemasonry. He was a general in the U.S. Army, and he basically set up the blueprints for World War III, and he's heralded among the Masonic community as one of the founders. Albert, very similar name. They have that wizard look, which, that it's a very basic archetype, that old gray wizard. Gandalf is the same in Lord of the Rings. It just is a strange coincidence that I noticed. Another, going into the first movie, the Sorcerer's or Philosopher's Stone, I grew up with it always being the Sorcerer's Stone. I remember seeing that on the book as well as the movie. And through time, what I believe happened is that people noticed that the Sorcerer's Stone is the same thing as the Philosopher's Stone of alchemy, where this stone supposedly transforms base metals into gold, which is symbolic for turning your lower desires into higher desires, lower self to higher self, Philosopher's Stone has many different layers of meaning. One could be the pineal gland, is that stone that provides consciousness and clarity, spirituality in sort of a robotic world. But first movie, Philosopher's Stone, here introduced is the mudblood, pure blood dichotomy. Malfoy's calling Hermione a mudblood. We see that the purity in blood is big in witchcraft, and how there's a split in the witchcraft world where the old witches and the new witches, like old money, new money. The old money is in the belief that you have to be born a witch in a witchcraft family in order to truly be a witch. And this new blood witchcraft is all on that. Anybody can become a witch if you do the proper initiation and rites. So we see that in Harry Potter, with the Malfoys being like a pure blood family that's very discriminatory against families that aren't of pure blood. And throughout the movies, you see even towards the very end, motive for Voldemort is to rid the world of muggles, or like to surpass the muggles, and that wizards that aren't of pure blood don't deserve to be wizards. So it's a big theme that we find beginning in the first that relates to witchcraft. Going into the Chamber of Secrets, the second movie, we see the Basilisk Witch. Pretty good channel. Mind Unveiled goes into the big homunculus talks. Good friend of mine, Old World Florida, and his boy Juan on Juan podcast, they go into homunculi as well, and how the basilisk is kind of a feminine manifestation of a homunculus. It's more like the feminine serpent in homunculi world, and the basilisk guards the Chamber of Secrets. And, the snake symbolism is big among, Voldemort, Tom Riddle, Harry Potter speaks parcel tongue, all that. Attaching, spiritual entities to physical objects, the Horcruxes that they're all after, starting with the Diary of Tom Riddle, which is brought forth in the Chamber of Secrets. Shimmying on into the Prisoner of Azkaban. Here we're introduced to a big astrology theme, which is more blatant, such as Sirius Black, the introduction of that boy, who is, I would say, the biggest astrological icon in the show that stands out like a sore thumb. Because Sirius, being the dog star, one of the brightest stars in the sky. Black, it's called the Black Star, the dog star. He transforms into a dog. I don't think that's a coincidence, let alone basically the whole Black family, and we see their family tree in one of the movies, are all named after constellations. His brother, Regulus Arcturus Black. Regulus and Arcturus are both constellations, and I'm just going to go ahead and list off other characters that I noticed resemble astrological points. Remus Lupin, Andromeda Tonks, Draco Malfoy, Severus Snape, Bellatrix Lestrange, Cassiopeia Black, Luna Lovegood. She's obviously that moon symbolism. She's super pale. She's in the clouds. She's very spiritual. Orion Black is another of the Black family. And Sirius's tattoos are something that I went back through and looked at, and we see that he has the alchemical sign of amalgamation on his chest, which is also associated with the Grey Wolf. It's combining two things into one, so it's like two different forms into one form, which is alchemical. And why would, like a kid wouldn't just pick up on this? So it's clearly going for the subconscious aspect and just rewatching it, repetition, and we find it to be part of our psyche as we grow up. And I wanted to throw in there that Lupin, Remus Lupin, who Remus is a constellation, is also a werewolf, and that's when he's also first introduced into the series, fun fact. Going into the Goblet of Fire, we find the Triwizard Cup ritual. If nominated, you must participate, so it's kind of like willy-nilly fun time, but you can't not do it if you don't want to participate, and people die in the tournament. So it's just like tough luck if you're nominated, which seems very witchcrafty, initiatory, coming of age. You got to do it. We see an example of rigging the system with magic. Mad Eye Moody rigs the system. So we see political elements in witchcraft here. Going into the Order of the Phoenix, that's more of a secret society introduction where Harry's sort of led into the know, kind of the secrets. Since this society's been operating since they were kids, they had no idea earlier. Now the viewer is kind of brought into the know as well. I'm going to skip over into the Deathly Hallows, where we find that first Deathly Hallows symbol, which is alchemical, clairvoyance. There's a lot of different meanings behind it, and I have a little article here that I found where J.K. Rowling states where she finds this symbol and where she claims to have introduced it into her own psyche for the ideas of the book. We get introduced to the fables and legends that make like the true history. So to me, this hearing the tale of the three brothers and all that shows how fables should tell us different natural laws or different facts about life that we don't really think about at the time, but teach us these lessons. We find out that Voldemort and Harry are two sides to one coin, and they literally merge together in the part 2 of Deathly Hallows, where we kind of see that they're, Harry's the hero, Voldemort's the anti-hero, but they're both the same entity. Dumbledore mentions that part of Voldemort lives inside of Harry, so that's kind of cryptic. Harry having to purify himself of his lower self, because he starts to, as he gets older, he becomes a little more dark, a little more prone to evil, and they're like, damn, Harry. So you see that he has to purge himself of his evils, which are Voldemort, in order to truly kill him. And real quick, I wanted to throw in something a little fun I did. Took some of the main characters and related them to the 7 celestial bodies. So this is something that very well could have been implied, the archetypes of the characters in relation to the planets. So I have Ron as Mars. He's the redhead, he's always eating, he's very sensual. He's always going by his instincts, and he seems to be kind of dull and stupid, Martian. Not saying Mars people are stupid, but it's the archetype. Hermione is Mercury, and I feel like this one's pretty obvious because Hermione, hermaphrodite, Hermes, and she's the bookworm, she's the intellectual one, and Mercury rules over the mind and the intellect. It's an air sign too. So she's always thinking critically on the spot. Harry is the sun, the savior, the boy who lived. Along Luciferian lines, he has that lightning bolt on his forehead. He's like Promethean, which could be also Jupiter, but I feel like story-wise, he's clearly the sun, the savior, the boy who lived, the chosen one. Luna Lovegood is the moon, for obvious reasons. Saturn kind of struggled with between Voldemort and Snape, but I realized that Snape is more like that father figure who gave limits to Harry, where the whole time we think he's a dick, but he ends up being the one looking out for Harry the whole time. So he was like that double agent, tough love, Saturnian energy. Jupiter, I have Dumbledore, the liberator. Dumbledore's always showing up, shaking up the scene, setting people loose with ease. He's that boy who comes in and doesn't have to really answer to people. Anytime he comes in, they're like, oh, okay, all right, whatever. And for Venus, I have Voldemort because he plays that Luciferian fallen angel guy, and that's the angle I took towards that. And a little thing before I wanted to close, going into these, I haven't seen any of these new Fantastic Beasts movies or anything, not really into it. But something I did come across was Brontis Jodorowsky, which is Alejandro Jodorowsky's son, and we all know Jodorowsky, the Holy Mountain, Topo Chico, amazing director. He was also really into magic and the occult. Brontis, his son, is in Fantastic Beasts as one of the characters. So it's interesting how, this franchise has a way of keeping the occult alive. And he is an actor, but I haven't really seen him in anything else. And they seem to be pretty selective of what they put themselves in, and what their agents decide to put him in. And that's a whole nother subject on its own. But hope you enjoyed. I wanted to spark this little thought. Hope you have a great day.